water saving and energy saving is becoming compulsory. It's the way it is. Hello everybody out there, this is of course Nick on the Get Me Off Grid video blog. Yes, this is of course a very exciting time for me because we're starting to see things coming into fruition. I've spoken about a lot of things in the earlier days of me setting up this one particular video blog, and it's all starting to come into place bit by bit. And I would say that just in a couple of months' time I will have most of, if not all of the infrastructure things that I'll need to basically get myself completely and utterly off grid. So on the basis that I was in a position to get myself a small holding, for instance, I wouldn't need to do anything else apart from to get busy with, let's say, arranging the equipment and planting some crops and essentially settling down to proper, complete, and utter off-grid living. And at that point I could then arrange courses so that I can show people the various ins and outs of how I'm actually doing it throughout the seasons, because people need hands-on education. Now you can learn about juggling, juggling with a couple of juggling balls through watching videos, okay? You can just sit there and you can learn, but if you don't get yourself some juggling balls yourself and actually practice, you yourself practice, okay, the chances of you actually getting anywhere would be like zero. You've got to get the muscle memory together, you've got to get your mind around dealing with all the physical things, you've got to be able to see the lengths and eventually that you can go to with the various technologies, no matter what they are, whether it's juggling balls or whether it's solar energy, okay, prior to actually using it yourself. Earlier on today I was at my grandmother's flat. I visited her, we had a wonderful lunch together, and it was quite a cool time. And whilst I was sitting there was part of my mind thinking, okay, this is a flat, it's on like the third story. So essentially how on earth could we put some kind of green technology here? And I thought, hang on a second, they've got a balcony. Alright, they actually have a little balcony there. So essentially on that balcony you could have like a small scale wood gas stove, couldn't you? You could like buy in wood pellets and you could have yourself a very cheap form of outdoor cooking that way. Or indeed use spirit stoves outside. For instance, there was quite a good windows on one side. There was one particular room that wasn't being used. So essentially what would be wrong with creating shutters, alright, and have solar cells on those shutters and have that connected to grid tie? Even in a flat on the third story, there is a way of taking some technology from off-grid living or self-sufficiency or any of this environmentally friendly stuff and actually incorporate that into something which is on like the third story. There are ways of doing it. Maybe in the future I'll set myself up going around people's houses and saying, well, what you could do is this, what you could do is that, and take from different schools of thought. There are those which come out of architecture, and then there's those which come out of using, things which you can make yourself or things which you can buy in yourself and fit yourself, rather than necessarily going to the extremes of getting yourself, proper architectural technician to work on everything. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is just show you some of the things I've picked up recently. This is just a 1-cup kettle, 1-cup electric kettle, but the interesting thing about it, that's right, it works on a cigarette lighter socket. So you'd have thought it'd be quite high power, but having looked at the rating, when you run it on 12 volt, it's got a little switch there, I don't know whether you can see that, so you can switch between 12 and 24 volts depending upon your system. And it uses up a different wattage depending upon which voltage you're on. But on 12 volts it's only 145 watts. Is it something I would use? Depending upon how much solar I've managed to accumulate or how much energy I've been able to get together, or whether I use the bicycle generator for instance, okay, and I got a good handle on how full the batteries were, yes and or no. I would probably use that rarely, but whenever I needed that extra spot of hot water here or there, and possibly not even going up to full temperature. I'm going to be getting myself some Kelly kettles in the not too distant future. These are things which are powered by twigs. They've got a special way of delivering the heat through a chimney which goes up the middle of the kettle. Alright, so that heats the water in the kettle much more quickly. So maybe 4 2-litre Kelly kettles, that can provide enough hot water to be able to do a small washing load, depending upon the type of washing machine you're going to be using. And there's a certain type of off-grid washing machine, yes, I've been thinking about this as well, which can also be used. It's all getting there. The ideas are pretty much crystallized. It's now a question of taking that from like the astral realm of my own mind and putting that into practice in reality. Just picked up this as well, which is obviously going to be very useful for the 12 volt system. I'm obviously going to have two systems going. One of them is going to be based upon 12 volts, the other one's going to be based upon 240 volts, or mains current. The mains current is of course going to be generated via power inversion. Okay, this is my 12 to 220 volts inverter going up to 1,200 watts, and it can actually peak at 2,000 watts, so I could run something like my popcorn maker off that thing, which is great. But this will be used, I'll get loads of these things, okay, loads of cigarette lighter type connections, which I can use for loads of cigarette lighter sockets. Little things are going to be accumulated, and then, as I say, it would be wonderful to turn my life into a bit of a museum. Alright, turn my life into a museum of how an individual can progress to off-grid. I'll tell you another quick little story. On the way to go and see my grandmother, I stopped off at a service station. And in this service station, I think it was a BP service station, I went into the lavatories. That's why I'm actually going to tell you a story about a toilet, funnily enough. This is quite an interesting one, though, because all of the walls inside was decorated with pictures of sunflowers. Alright, and beautiful meadows with buttercups growing, and there was actually noises, sounds from outdoors, sunny weather outside, being played through speakers in the ceiling of this lavatory, which was peculiar. Okay, there were sounds of insects and bird song and all that kind of stuff. And there was a sign up on the wall saying, "Our taps will only provide the quantity of water which is actually required to wash your hands, because we are going towards a greener environment." Now, obviously, it's rather ironic that this is a BP service station, okay, and BP is involved with petroleum. We all know about what happened in the Gulf of Mexico, and so on and so forth. But the message it is portraying is that we have to start saving now. All right, saving energy, saving water, and doing this essentially as a global community, even to the point whereby they are willing to put that politics in a convenience, if you get my drift. So once you're answering the call of nature, that message, which we all need to hear, is being pumped your way. Alright? These are all things that's worthwhile bearing in mind and thinking about as we're in this particular era, which I think is a rather curious era.
Check that out.